Arey, take us through. Bollywood and cricket always remember God for that. कि भैया
Yeah.
नैया पार लगा दे.
So, real life now. Good evening, everyone. I am Soumi Bandyopadhyay, and I welcome you all to this panel discussion on cultural identity and ideology curated under TMYS review in association with Center of South Asian Studies, University of Hawaii. Under this theme, TMYS review March 2023 will explore the role of community appearance and individual presentation in shaping cultural identity and ideology. I also would like to say that we are calling for submission of stories, essays, and poems. And for project architecture and submission guidelines, please visit www.tellmeyourstory.biz. Today's topic of discussion is Sufi songs and Bhajans, the religious iconography in Bollywood, the spirit of God beyond religious identities of composers, lyricists, and singers. We are honored to have with us Shantanu Chaudhury sir, Pavan Jha sir, and Bobby Singh sir. Thank you so much for joining us. I shall now
Thank you.
quickly introduce our speakers. Our first speaker for tonight is Shantanu Chaudhury. Shantanu Chaudhury is a film buff, editor, publisher, film critic, and writer. Commissioned and edited by him have won the National Award for Best Book on Cinema and Mumbai Academy of Moving Images Award for Best Writing on Cinema. In 2017, he was named Editor of the Year by the Apex publishing body, Publishing Next. He has contributed to a number of magazines and websites. He is also the author of two books, Whims, a book of poems published by Writer Workshop, and Icons from Bollywood, published by Penguin. Next, we have Pavan Jha sir. Pavan Jha, born in Shikur, Rajasthan. By profession, he is an technocrat. He has played a key role as a technical expert in important projects such as election reforms and other, contributing to a technological solutions in electrical reforms in 90s. He is an associate member of the National Cyber Security Council. Pavan Jha is fond of film since childhood, and today he is equally known as an expert in cinema and music. Jha has also been associated with BBC. Apart from this, he has been writing on cinema and music in the Hindu and Outlook. Pavan Jha is also a cancer survivor, and after recovering, he has made it is his goal to help cancer patients and their families in the last 55 years. Next, we have Bobby Singh sir, beginning his affair with Hindi cinema as a stage artist and later exploring other avenues as an educationist, poet, and graphical designer. The author is now an experienced creative music consultant and a prolific writer on cinema, music, and poetry. Active in the film for the last 2 decades, living and breathing cinema as a live, enriching passion, his latest reviews, verses, and articles can regularly be accessed at his personal website devoted to these three forms of creative art, serving as the three essential elements of his life, as per his own words. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, without further delay, we shall start with today's session. First, I would like to request Shantanu Chaudhury sir, please present your views on today's topic. And I would also like to request us to please mute your mics while one is speaking. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Shomi, and thank you, Coral, for having me here. And I'm so glad to be sharing the stage, the show with Pavan and Bobby Ji. Both of whom I really admire for their work in the.
Sir, you are not.
Shantanu, your mic is muted.
Okay, I'm particularly glad that in this subject, the subject of uh, religious songs, bhajans or Sufi songs and qawwalis in Hindi cinema. This has been part way before Hindi cinema became Bollywood. So my take is that I'll leave most of the analysis and the arguments to the experts here, Bobby and Pavanji. But my thing is, I think Indian cinema, not just Hindi cinema, Indian cinema in itself is founded on, as we were discussing before the show, founded on mythology, on religion. The first films were all sort of the original films that came out in the early stages were all religion based or mythology based. And the right from the onset of sound, uh, the religious song has had a very important place in Hindi cinema. It's also provided a strong foundation for uh, religious syncretism, and syncretism. And you see, we all know of Mohammad Rafi and Naushad singing songs, for address to what are supposed to be Hindu gods, and that's been one of the greatest contributions of um, uh, Hindi cinema music to this country. Like when it comes to songs, they transcend religion and identity and caste, and so uh, it becomes one wholesome thing. Like, so that's one part. Man Tadpat Hari Darshan Ko Aaj is Rafi Saab and Naushad Saab, and Shakil Badayoni, if I'm not mistaken. So it doesn't get more eloquent than that, what Indian civilization is all about. So that is the point. And also the fact is, Bollywood has also, Hindi cinema has also shown a remarkable skill in adapting certain forms. So the Qawwali, which is a form of devotional address to God, to Allah, has become more or less, in Hindi cinema, it's become a means of romantic exchange. Like, so that's also a part where God has been sidelined in one sense, and the lover becomes, it's sort of ye ishq hai, ye ishq ishq hai, ishq ishq. So it becomes, you don't know whether it's God being spoken about, or it's a pure romantic song. That's another aspect. And that the same thing has happened with Sufi songs. Hindi cinema, ever since the time the first Sufi songs started coming in. I think the first time I heard a song in this tradition was in the film Amir. Uh, 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 so and But then subsequently, even Hindi cinema found a way to uh, uh, mold the Sufi song also in a way where it became more of a romantic ballad than a Sufi song which addresses a certain, which strictly, in the strict sense, addresses a certain state of being between the follower and the divine. So I think those are the aspects we should be talking about. What these religious songs mean. Are they actually religious, or do they transcend religion? How does Bollywood, Hindi cinema, mold these songs to their own needs, to its own needs, like to articulate a certain way of life, whereby qawwalis become romantic ballads, and Sufi songs also get a romantic tinge to it. So those are the aspects. And and foundation, as I said, is based on the fact that our cinema is from originates from mythology and religion, and we have a huge uh, foundation of religious films, be it Jai Santoshi Ma, or be it, which actually nobody knew about Santoshi Ma being a god till that film got made. And those songs, 50 years have passed, and those songs remain as popular. So we'll be discussing all of this, and I think Shomi, both Pavan and Bobby have wonderful foundation on these aspects. And I would rather be a listener and a learner in this forum today with Pavanja and Bobby Singh. If I have questions, I'll address questions to them also. So, and please take forward from there.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Now, without further delay, uh, I am asking Pavan Jha sir to please say something on this topic. Over to you, sir. Sir, please unmute yourself.
Sure. So, speaking for the theme of today, especially the Sufi music part of it, and how cinema is carrying that particular genre forward, and how it has adapted. Matlab, we'll cover the various aspects, but Sufi music, to begin with, is a much bigger and much older form of art than cinema, and not exactly a form of art, but it's a way to connect to the God. And it has been derived from a religion, Islamic. It has an Islamic origination, but the message it conveys is universal, as it doesn't consider any of the exponent or any of the disciples of this particular genre as a of a particular religion. So Sufi music is anyway much bigger and much larger canvas than cinema, and much older history than cinema. But what has happened in last 100 years is the kind of impact, the visual impact, the cinema as a medium for art and culture has given to the public, the masses. The cinema has actually become the folk theater and folk music of our times. It has actually replaced almost every other form of art for its impact, because no other form of art has a kind of impact the cinema has on the masses, when we reach to the public, because all other actually cinema has made all other forms of art as a cult form of art, where a certain league of people are following. But when it comes to cinema, cinema is universal, cinema is populist, cinema, the kind of reach cinema has, and the kind of archival value cinema has. So that is another very important aspect. So cinema has become one of the biggest drivers of art and music and the visual form, especially the theater, in last 100 years. So that is why cinema has also become a driver for the Sufi music in these days, or maybe a devotional music forms, or maybe in the form of prayers or the bhajans, or across the religions. Matlab. So since our focus is on Sufi music, so I'll not restrict it to a single religion, but will come to, because when I started in my earlier part of the childhood, when I was just 4 or 5 or 6 in the early years, since my mother was a big a kind of fan of good music, quality music, including classical music, because she was a she was actually trained singer also. So we used to hear people like Kumar Gandharv, Bhimsen Joshi, and Jaydev. And what Sufi music does to you, it actually takes you away from your world, because Sufi music has that kind of power, where you connect to the God, and you actually are isolated from entire surroundings. And that kind of impact I have seen in the earlier years in the performances of Kumar Gandharv or Bhimsen Joshi, because the kind of power their music has, they actually take you away from yourself and take you to some other world. It takes it they actually are the Pied Pipers of our times. Like we have the very popular story of the Pied Piper. So somewhere the cinema actually has become the driver in our times in last 100 years. And especially that is why today's theme of Sufi music, as well as cinema, as the key driver to it, becomes important. Now coming to the cinema part, the history of cinema. When cinema started when started speaking in 1931, when it got a tongue, when it got the dialogues, when the characters start speaking, it needed to have certain kind of inspirations for creating that visual form of art. So where does those inspiration came from? And there was another byproduct of cinema, that was film music. There was one of the mediums was cinema, and one of the medium was film music. Why film music was a separate medium? Because we already, our cinema started talking in 1931, but our recording industry was in existence since 1898 or 1899, when Shashi Bala and Gohar Jan had recorded those initial records, and we had already had almost 30 years of recording history. So since we started recording and since we started archiving those voices, so it was already a popular medium, and radio did a wonderful job in actually taking that music to various homes. Because for cinema, you had to go to a theater to watch that particular cinema. It has to be a community event. But the radio and the record players were taking the music directly to your home. So it was the first kind of your OTT, your direct to home broadcasting. And somehow that made the music bigger than the cinema, the byproduct bigger than the actual product. Because even when you turn back and see the older times, you don't remember the films that much, but you remember the songs. We have a scholar in US, Ashraf Aziz Sahab, who has written a line कि फिल्में फानी हैं पर गीत अमर हैं. Means films have a shelf life, but the songs are immortal. So somewhere the cinema becomes a very important driver of the music, and it actually, the cinema music became folk music for us in last 100 years. And speaking of that entry point of cinema, so the entry point inspirations were either the Parsi theater, or we had forms like Ramlila, we had forms like Lok Natya in Marathi, Tamasha Shaili, we had Jatra in Bengal. So we have various kind of folk theater forms, which became actually the initial talking points for the cinema, the seeds for the telling seeds of the stories that cinema started to tell. And somewhere of all those Natya forms, of all those Parsi theaters, music was always an essential part. And let me tell you one thing, our very first film, Alam Ara, the first song that Firoz Shah Mistri recorded for Alam Ara was a song called De De Khuda Ke Naam Pe De De, which was rendered by a character actor called W.M. Khan, Wazir Muhammad Khan. And that song was a fakir song. It was picturized on a fakir, and it was a fakirana, Sufiana song. So in fact, our foundation actually was built on those kind of devotional songs, because they, in fact, one of the very first lyricist of film music, especially Hindi film music, was Pandit Radheshyam Kathavachak. And Pandit Radheshyam Kathavachak was actually a storyteller. He used to tell the Krishna stories, he used to tell the Ramayana stories, the Ramayana stories. Like we have pandals and people come and read Gita, Ramayana and all those. So Pandit Radheshyam Kathavachak came from that background, and he actually adapted his storytelling into cinema. And he became one of the first lyricists. So we somewhere from the very starting had this thing in our seed. And over the next 100 years, we are into the 91st year of the talkie era. So somewhere the cinema became the actual carrier for the Sufi music. But I'll tell you one more thing as a counterpoint, that Sufi music, when we say as a piece of art, or we see as a devotional element, we add to it. So cinema can never create Sufi music, because cinema is a product. A film song is a product, and cinema can only imitate Sufi music. It cannot create Sufi music, because for Sufi music, the kind of connect you need, it is like a classical music in comparison to a film song which is recorded over 3 minutes. So somewhere a film song becomes a product, and the real Sufi music can never become a product, because it is a way to connect to the God. So somewhere cinema actually imitated the Sufi music, and it actually adapted that particular form. But what what cinema actually did was to take it to the masses. it was Sufi music was earlier part of a cult. Only people who were following, like the Qawwals, or the people who were religiously into that, they used to hear that. But what cinema did, that it took those folk forms, it took those devotional forms to to the common people, to the drawing room of the common people, to the kitchen of the common people, and somewhere the forms became much more bigger. In fact, when we say literature as the base for cinema, so what cinema did, literature had a limited masses or limited target audience, but cinema actually took that literature piece to a different to a different audience set, to a much larger audience set. And it so cinema was one of the biggest carriers for our art and literature and the folk forms, especially in last 100 years. So I'll talk on other points of Sufi music, but to set the base and set the tone, I thought this history is important. But I'll take one more name, that a lot of Sufi saints and Sufi Qawwals, if you see the music of first 30-40 years, so they drew a lot from people like Amir Khusro, people like Ghalib, people like Mira, people like Kabir. So even in first 30-40 years, you will find a lot of inspiration. Whatever heritage we had in terms of our folk music, in terms of our devotional music, it became an initial seed, or you can say the core for that new medium to adapt. And somewhere it is still continuing, that we are still going back to those poets and those saints, and we are still continuing, we are still going to Rumi, or we are still going to Ghalib, who was a Sufi poet, because if you see the kind of connect he had, so I'll come back to this, but I thought I should give you a base and of the history and how it came to our cinema. And the significance or the relevance will come to that later.
Yes. Thank you so much, sir. And now I would like to request Bobby Singh, sir, please present your views on today's topic. And yes, it is open for interactions also.
Hello. Um, I have a little different opinion than
Sure.
what Pavanji expressed.
Sure.
First of all, Pavanji has explained us the historical history part of the music and all that. That is very well done by him, and the names are very important what he has taken. But the what I feel is that we are a nation or land of God-fearing people. So when we started creating cinema, so the first expression we had was the God-fearing expression of devotional songs. So we began from there, and that is what Pavanji quoted. So the first films, the first cinema, the first music were mostly having devotional music in it, and devotional songs became the major part of our cinema till very long, till the end of the last century. But regarding Sufi music, the term Sufi music was never used before 80,
Yeah.
90 rather.
Yeah.
Nobody used the term Sufi music. Nobody wrote Sufi music on cassettes, LP records, nothing. Sufi music term has started in circulation after 90s. So that is the first thing. Earlier, we used to call it bhajans, devotional music, bhakti-may sangeet. That were the terms used on cassettes, records, LPs, and all that. So the first thing is we have to see the term started from 90s. Basically, it started from when Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan and other musics came to our part of the world in 90s. So and the interesting part is Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan was not introduced in 90s. He was introduced in 80s in film Na Khuda by Khayyam Saab. But never ever anybody called that a Sufi track. Nobody called that a Sufi track. That was a Qawwali, a simple Qawwali added in the film soundtrack. The term Sufi music started when Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan came in India, performed in India, then the whole other tracks started coming. Then in the late 90s, the cassettes, the audio industry started exploiting the term Sufi music. they started putting Sufi music as the titles, Sufi songs, Sufi Qawwalis. These were the titles given. And then after 2000, the films started incorporating that in their soundtrack. And those tracks which were given that kind of feel with some Urdu songs or some kind of lyrics with which where you can relate it to the God and relate it to the beloved, anybody. So that is where the film cinema started exploiting the Sufi music, calling it a Sufi song. So the earlier when the films had a bhajan in it, after 2000, they started having a Sufi song in them. So that was the cinema relation with Sufi song. Secondly, um, I there are, widely said, Pavanji also said that Sufi music is the music that connects you to the God. I will not restrict that Sufi music to that term. Any music can connect you to the God. Any music that connects you to the God is Sufi music. Sufi music is not certain genre that is connecting you to the God. Any music, even a ghazal, even a Jaggi Singh ghazal, even a kawali, even a bhajan, even a shabad, anything, even a poetry, anything which connects you to the God is Sufi music.
Yeah.
So Sufi music cannot be confined to just certain words, certain terms, certain religion, certain expression, or certain. It's not purposefully made to connect with God. It is expressed, and the God gets connected. That can happen while you listen to a Jagdi Singh ghazal too. That can happen when you listen to a film song too. So Sufi music is not that certain. You should not put that in a box that this is to connect with God. Any music can connect it with you connect you to the God, and any music which connects you to the God is Sufi music. So I will stop at that, and then I will contribute in the discussion.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. Now, this is open for interactions, and I have a question for Shantanu, sir. Sir, Sufi music has made a remarkable re-entry in Bollywood, and we have had more than a dozen super hit songs from this genre. And songs like Allah Ki Bande or Jia Dharak Dharak Jaye or Mitwa have captured the imaginations of Indians across geographies and classes. And about a decade ago, Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan or Avida Parveen were heard by many. And today, singers like Kailas Kher and Rahat Fateh Ali Khan have been excellent composers of this music and have taken it to people who have had no exposures before it. So, how is Sufism emerging as a unifying force and a spiritual discipline that accommodates the practitioners of every faith? So, over to you, sir. Sir, please unmute yourself.
I sorry. I'm not very sure that Hindi filmmakers actually went into uh, the Sufi stream wanting to create something that unifies, and it's I think it's like it's always been. Hindi cinema has been very very adapt to sort of has been very very quick to take on changing fashions, so and there's a flow that keeps coming. There was this era in the 70s when funky music and pop and rock were the craze in a lot of in the world, and uh, a lot of Hindi cinema composers followed that. There are cases, there are instances where filmmakers would actually insist कि ये गाना मैंने अभी I was in London, I listened to this song and please adapt it. I think that's what happened with Hindi cinema also when it comes to Sufi songs, like and uh, uh, a lot of these songs are actually not, I don't know, there are very two opposing views and very interesting views. Pavanji's and Bobby ne abhi jaisa he says, like any song that makes you feel connected to an unknown force is a Sufi song. It need not be a what you call a religious thing. So I think a lot of these songs, if you look at the lyrics, they have tended to become, it's just kind of riding on a certain stream, that brilliant, that essence that comes in ख्वाजा मेरे ख्वाजा और रहम करना है खुदा आमिर का जो गाना है, these two songs come to my mind immediately when I talk of a Sufi song in Hindi cinema. Uh, and I think they are very different from a number of the other derivatives that have evolved after that. So I don't think in Hindi filmmakers actually came, they just hit upon acha Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan became popular, as Bobby ji said. Nakhuda mein nobody even knew, and that's a perfectly good example of a Sufi song that went unnoticed. But by the 90s, by Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, Rahat Fateh Ali Khan were hugely popular in the West. Their songs, his song was part of Dead Man Walking, the film, the soundtrack mein wo bhi tha. So, it became fashionable, I think, for Hindi filmmakers to also. So, come in, Bobby ji, come in. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, no, you are very right, sir. The point you are making is very right. The filmmakers today, they make their soundtrack as a bouquet, and in that bouquet, they want a Sufi song. They only want a Sufi song, and they ask that just give us a Sufi song sung by somebody who is known to sing that kind of songs, like Kailash Kher, Rahat Fateh Ali Khan, and all. So they don't know, yeah, they don't care what kind of song it is, yeah, what it is
and
saying.
and 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 it has to have a mola in it.
Yeah, Mola and Khuda and that kind of words. It has to be there, and just make a song on it, and we'll have a Sufi song in our soundtrack. That is the main requirement they put up. And one more thing is that when the audio companies started exploiting this as a Sufi song, uh, people started listening it, and then there is a wide change in our outlook in India, and that is political also, which is what was different before 2015, and now it is quite different. Before 2015, when you had a song like this, Khwaja Mere Khwaja, it was respected. It was respected, it was heard, it was enjoyed, it was cherished by everyone, irrespective of who is listening to it. Now, I doubt that kind of song will be listened to with that kind of respect. Now, the different outlooks have been planted in our listening, and what we are doing is we are listening it according to who has sung it, what is written in it, what is being said, and what does it belong to any religion or not. So our music, our listening has been disturbed brutally.
Yeah, and one thing, Bobby ji, what I find very interesting about Hindi films' capacity to sort of expand the universe of this so-called religious, we had at one point of time we had the capacity to make fun of our gods. You could
Yeah,
have a song like Jai Jai Shiva Shankar, which is talking about Bole Baba
yeah.
totally out. I don't think a song like that would pass today. There'll be some.
साहिर रोड देख तेरे भगवान की हालत क्या हो गई इंसान,
Yeah,
कितना बदल
right,
गया
right,
भगवान.
right, very right.
So,
That was a satire,
yeah,
beautiful satire,
yeah,
and everybody enjoyed it, and they
yeah,
appreciated it.
to add to your point, Bobby, I didn't say that. I am in complete agreement that whatever kind of form of music that takes you away from yourself and
Yeah,
puts you
yes,
in another world can be a Sufi song. But I always call Bollywood as the plastic Sufi,
yes,
because
yes, yes.
because
That's right.
because
That's
because
right. That's right.
That's
That's
a
so
right.
very good
any
term.
but there are people like A.R. Rahman who
Mhm.
actually takes music as a devotional form. Matlab, they actually treat as a devotion, and when they create it in that mood. So sometimes some of their expressions, some of their
Yes,
creative output has taken to those particular. It has reached to that levels where you can connect and
Yes,
where it has
that is
that
true.
power beyond that Sufi.
Every
I'm not
creator,
talking of the Mahesh Bhatt cinema or the
no,
Priyams
no,
or
no,
the
no.
Ramesh Rashmiyas. They all
Let,
have.
let,
Actually, I have reviewed, like you. I have also reviewed music for the BBC. And in those days, 2011, 12, 13, 14, every film had that Sufi song. And
yeah,
I always quoted them as plastic Sufi. It cannot
yeah.
be a Sufi. Because the intent, what matters
Intended.
is the intent, how
Yes,
you are creating, why you are creating. Are you creating it as a product? Are you creating it to impress people? Are you
yeah.
creating to fill in the genre, or are you really creating with that mood, with that
Yeah, in
mood
fact,
to create?
Pavanji,
Yeah,
very interesting that the I think the best Sufi soundtrack we have actually has not is not from films soundtrack.
Yeah.
Ishka is absolutely, I think, the
absolutely,
pinnacle of
absolutely.
that. And
तेरे इश्क में is a complete Sufi song. या
yeah,
रोशनी रोशनी घर जला लिया है,
that's
मतलब, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, that,
and
that is
and
the
all the people involved in making that song actually tried to reach to that level. Rather than making it as a film product, they actually tried to make it as a proper Sufi album. That is the
that is
intent placed there.
that is also a good example that we don't need that kind of words in a Sufi song. That can be simply written as a poetry for a beloved.
uh,
So that is a very good example of that.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Now my question to you, sir, Pavan sir. The Bollywood song style comprises a stylistic language that becomes disarticulated from film songs and rearticulated with Bhojpuri songs. So, how does Bhojpuri song serve a medium for Hindi language pedagogy and a tool for positioning selves and others in intra-community as well as the extra inter-community systems of belonging and hierarchy?
Yeah.
So, over to you,
Actually,
sir.
I have a strong objection to in specifically pointing out the Bhojpuri part of it, because Bollywood is not made from the Bhojpuri form of music or the dialect. But ever since I have been watching cinema and listening to music, it was always a mix of Hindi, Urdu, and vernacular. These three were the core which formed the language of cinema, Hindi cinema, and language of Hindi film music. And we were exposed to that language courtesy of our dialogue writers and the lyricists in the form of the dialogues that we used to remember, or in the songs that we use. Chalo ek baar fir se ajnabi ban jaye hum dono. We were exposed to the Urdu words, we were exposed to the Hindi words, and we were even exposed to the vernaculars. So in that form, Bhojpuri was not a very significant. You can showcase that as a proper core part of it, but somehow I'll come to not I'll use another term, Avdi and Braj and Purbi. These three, actually the central India, these actually helped in giving us a language called Hindi that we have today. And somewhere, some of the best exponents in terms of our writers and lyricists came from that heartland, where especially like people like Naushad, who used Purbi. Purbi is UP and Bihar mixed together, a certain region of that part, and the folk music of that area that was brought by Naushad into our film music. So the Purbi Ang, and in fact a lot of classical music, for example, Begum Akhtar, she hailed from that Awadh part, and Awadh was one of the major capitals of our major cultural capitals in terms of poetry and music in 17th, 18th, 19th century. So somewhere, yeah, and since I said that cinema actually used those stories, especially if I tell you a name, there was a person called Aga Amanat, Aga Hassan Amanat, who was one of the Navratnas of Wazid Ali Shah's court. He was a poet in Wazid Ali Shah's court in that century when Ali Shah was ruling, and he was a poet. And since he was a poet of the Darbar, so he had to maintain that quality. But what he did, he actually anonymously wrote a play, a full length play in that particular 18th century, which had a lot of ghazals, which had a lot of shairi, which had a lot of musical elements to it. And he didn't give his name to that, because he thought, I am a Darbari poet, and since this is more of a populist form, so I should not be giving my name, it should go as an anonymous. And that play was Indar Sabha. He wrote that Indar Sabha play in that Wazid Ali Shah court, and he didn't give his name. But what happened in some of the ghazals, the makta of the ghazals, his takallus remained. So people actually came to know that Indar Sabha is written by the poet of the Darbar, Amanat Sahab. And that Indar Sabha play, if you know, became one of the real seeding point of our initial part of cinema. In 31 to 35, you will see 3 Indar Sabha films, and one of them has the record of maximum number of songs, 71 songs in that entire film, because the film was written in a way that it had some dialogues, and then it has some poetry and music. So it has total 71 songs interspersed with the dialogues. So it is kind of a musical play. So it came from there. So Awadh became one of the major centers, one of the major driving force of our cultural heritage, and cinema adapted that. So somewhere that influence I can see in your question, but somewhere I always believe that you cannot single out Bhojpuri, because there's an element of Braj, there's an element of Avdi, there's an element of Rajasthani, there's an element of Punjabi, because there's a significant lot of Punjabi musicians who actually dominated the 40s and 50s. So it is not to single out, but of course, since one of the entry points to our cinema and film music was our vernacular and regional folk forms, so these vernacular languages and the folk songs in that played an important role in giving us a lot of film songs. And we do see a lot of film songs based on our folk, maybe from Bhojpuri, maybe from Avdi, maybe from Braj, maybe from Rajasthan. For example, Jaman Sale and Khemchand Prakash, maybe from Bengal, because people like Anil
Yes.
Biswas and Pankaj Malik, they brought the Bengali, the Bhatiyali folk and everything in cinema. So our cinema was primarily, it is not, you cannot just showcase the Bhojpuri part, but the entire regional languages, they made a very important role. They played an important role to give us that foundation for our film and film music and film lyrics. Another important aspect is that Urdu, because Ghazal, because another entry point for our cinema music, the inspiration was apart from the devotional music, that temple music or the Ramcharitmanas. See, our Ramcharitmanas was written in Chaupais. It was a musical form, so it was already sung. That is one of the reasons why we had that music in our drama and cinema. So another entry point was the music of the kothas, the bais who used to sing, the Goharzans and the Amir Bai Karnataki, or all the old age Hindu Bala, you name. So all the, if you see the mehfils of the Rajwadas, because prior to 1950 we have a lot of provincial places were headed by kings, and they used to promote such kind of music apart from folk music, this kind of form of ghazals. And so usually we had this Persian influence and the Urdu influence to our ghazal poetry, and it became somewhere a part of the populist medium through those records and radios where that non-film music used to play. And if you see in the early hello early part of our Bollywood music from 1931 to 1947, you will see a lot of bais contributing to our film music. Zohra Bai Ambale Wali, Begum Akhtar, Amir Bai Karnataki. So that was another influence point. So Of course, Avdi or the Bhojpuri had a mm, because it came from the heartland. I can take that point, but still I don't buy that point that it became an essential force, essential driving force. uh, I believe each and every region and religion and the people from that played an important part.
One question I had
Yeah,
growing from here, Shomi, if you just
yeah,
allow me, and Bobiji, I'd like you
Yes, sir.
to ask you about this. One of the he was talking, Pavanji was talking about influences, and one of the major religious movements or whatever, if you
yeah,
came from Bengal, you know, the
yeah, yeah,
Bengali kirtan form
yeah,
of music, Chaitanya
yeah,
Mahaprabhu's
yeah.
ke time se,
Yeah,
and that was actually a very intrinsic part of Hindi film music,
absolutely.
religious music at one point of time. आप किताब में ले लीजिए, किताब का जो गाना था, हरी दिन तो गया, दिन
Yeah.
तो बीता, और
Even the
अपने
Pyasa,
पराए में,
Aaj Sajan
हाँ,
Mohe Ang Laga Le, that is a
अगर
Kirtan.
हाँ, शाम
Yeah,
शाम रंग रंगारे. तो
yeah, yeah.
बॉबी जी, like uh, how how has that aspect sort of died out? You know, it's we don't have that aspect anymore. And strangely enough, South Indian devotional music or Carnatic devotional music hasn't been so much a part of Hindi cinema. If you could sort of elaborate on these aspects. I don't think, I don't know if I'm not aware of anything from the Sikh tradition of religious music being a part of uh, uh, Hindi film music anyway. So if you could just elaborate on those points, you know, like I found it very interesting. Sunte sunte. Please unmute. Hello.
Sorry.
Huh.
Actually, the religious part, the Sikhism part, and the devotional, Punjabi devotional, it was a part of Hindi cinema since very long. And the reason was that many of the music directors in Hindi cinema were Sikhs. Like the best example is S. Mohinder, and he was doing Hindi music, Hindi film music, as well as Punjabi film music, and there was influence of devotional and Punjabi music in his Hindi cinema as well as the Punjabi cinema. And one of the interesting part is that one of the most famous, probably the first number one film which comes to your mind while we discuss devotional music in Indian cinema is Nanak Naam Jahaj Hai. That is a film, and that film was not made by Sikhs. That was made by by Bombay producers and all, and the music was done by S. Mohinder. And that film had a song, Shabad Mitar Pyare Nu, which was sung by Mohammad Rafi. So that is kind of tradition which we are following since the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. And one major change which came in the devotional music was when towards late 80s and early 90s, Gulshan Kumar was making a big name in audio industry. And the Hindi film industry sort of banned him. We will not we will not give you any films. We will not give you any film rights. So what he did was, he was a visionary in his own right. So what he did was, he captured the devotional market. When the Hindi film music industry refused to give him the soundtracks, he captured the devotional market, Hindi devotional, the regional devotional, and Punjabi devotional. Till 90, in early 90s and 95, he was the king of the devotional music. He had all the devotional music of Punjabi, the Shabad Kirtan, the only soul company which was producing Shabad Kirtan was HMV, and HMV, after HMV, it came as T Series. So he was the sole owner of all the copyrights. And then when Hindi film music started adapting the Punjabi songs, so many of the old 90s, 80s songs were already there with T Series. They had the rights. So they used all those songs in the latest films, which you are listening now after 20, 30 years. They were all recorded by T series in those times. So in that devotional music, Sikhism, and with the one more example I can give you. Yash Chopra had many devotional kind of inclusions in his films. One of those were in Silsila, and they were not in the soundtrack. Earlier, it was released in a 2 LP soundtrack, so it was there. It was a Shabad sung by Harbans Singh Jagadri Wale, and it was called Ba Jinadi Pakdiye, Fir Dije Ba Na Chodiye. After 20 years, when his son made a film, Rab Ne Bana Di Jodi, he used the same track as the introduction track, sung by the same Ragi, again resung, but in the same composition, and he used that again in Rab Ne Bana Di Jodi. So they had the connect with Punjab and the devotional music Punjabi cinema had. But when the next generations came, even the Johar and all, they all had some kind of Punjabi connect in the earlier films. Even you can see Devanand singing Punjabi songs, Ki Gal Hai, and all that. But after that, when after 2000, the scenario has quite changed, and the generations have changed. Now the Punjab connect has lost. They've lost the Punjab connect. Now the devotional connect is not there. But still, now what is happening is that devotional music is again getting a big mark in music. It is the most selling component in audio business at this moment. Even at YouTube, the most running channels are of Shabad Gurbani and all. So devotional music doing a big at this moment. Regarding the films, so again, since the political scenario has changed, so devotional songs and that kind of songs which represent the religion are now not getting included in our films and soundtracks.
The point, Pavanji, Bobbyji, the Bengal influence in religious music in Hindi cinema has also sort of dipped. It's sort of totally gone out, isn't it?
Gone out. Yes.
There are influences. People are trying to go back to the roots. There are certain people, but unfortunately, somewhere the music industry itself is misdirected these days by the quality that we used to see earlier. It is not there, so you cannot expect them to come up, especially people who don't have that kind of upbringing and cultural roots. So they are more adapting to what is available and what is selling. So, and even the produce, whatever is
another reason is the biggest hits we have, the last few hits we have, they don't have any soundtrack as such.
But it is coming back. Especially this year, I think this is a good year because in very recent times I have seen soundtracks that are coming back, because earlier we had actually lost the concept of soundtrack totally when we moved to singles and the music was not releasing. Because when singles were releasing and there were no cassettes, there were no CDs, we had at least 4, 5 years, 6 years of that particular timeline where the music was actually not releasing in the form it used to for last 50, 60 years. But coming back to that political part, I'll tell you something. The religious scrutiny of this form was always there. It was there in those days of 40s and 50s also. I remember a very important episode where Shamshad Begum, who was a very young at that time, I think in teens, or she was just 19, 18, 19, she sang a bhajan called Tere Pujan Ko Bhagwan, which became a big hit. But the record company insisted that if we put Shamshad Begum's name on the record, people will not listen. So what they did, they put the name Radha Rani instead of Shamshad Begum. Much later, people came to know that it was Shamshad Begum. So this kind of this religious scrutiny, especially by the power player, like music industry, the record industry or producers. They always come. It is not the artist, but the other
Yeah.
power centers of the production. They come into picture that this won't sell and that won't sell. So that is an important aspect. And I'll come to the political part much later in the next segment. But I think we can move forward to the whatever the next segment you have,
Yes.
because if we start the political part, it will, matlab, we'll have to discuss that. Matlab, that is for sure, but maybe in another angle, in another aspect. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much, sir. Now I have a question for Bobby, sir. Uh, sir, through the versions of Meera or Savari, can we demonstrate that people, sadhus' performances serve as a constructive acts through which these extraordinary women legitimate their uncommon life choices and construct a non-institutionally based female sadhus tradition that has been underrepresented in our academic studies on spiritualism? So, what do you say?
Um, it's difficult because I always feel that when we talk about spiritual attainment or enlightenment, then the gender bias is always there. Gender bias was always there and it's still there. And even if you search or research and you start searching for female enlightened people, you will not get a longer list of any religion, be it the older one or the latest one. So it's difficult, but there's an interesting thing is that the bias continues in the present era also. And the thing that's relating it with the Sufi music, when you find a Sufi mystic, you will always find a Sufi mystic as a male. You will very rarely find a Sufi mystic as a female. Various reasons behind that, but you will never find a Sufi mystic. Rabia is there. You will find the name Rabia, but you will never find a long list of Sufi mystics as a female. Now the point is, uh, when you write a Sufi song, where Sufi mystics write some lyrics, so they consider themselves as females. They don't write those lyrics as a male. They consider themselves as female, and then they consider the Lord, the God, the supreme power as male, and they address him as husband, as beloved, beloved lover, husband. So that is the form of Sufi music. And the tragedy is that even when the Sufi mystics are writing it as a female, the female mystics are not there. You will not find female mystics writing it. You will find the male mystics writing it from the female perspective. So it's very difficult when you say the female sadhu. So the only name comes to your mind is Mirabai. You have the lyrics of Mirabai. When you will search the lyrics of anybody else, so you will not get much names. You will not many names who have written the Sufi kind of traditional songs or verses. So you will only get confined to Mirabai. So and the bias is continuing till now. Even till now, if you say ki a person is enlightened, so you will easily accept if he's a male. But it's very difficult to accept that a female has enlightened. So a female enlightened person is still difficult to accept. I'll give you an example of because I'll not give you an example of any other religion. I'll give you an example of my own religion. In Sikhism, it's the most modern sect till considered as made in just 300 400 years back. So this sect is considered to be the modern. This sect is considered to be giving the respect to women as even in Guru Granth Sahib, the women is given the utmost respect. But the truth is, the women are not allowed to sing Shabad Gurbani in Golden Temple. They cannot sing Shabad Gurbani in Golden Temple. Golden Temple is the Makkah of Sikhism, and they are not allowed to sing any verses there. So now, why they are not allowed, that is a different discussion. But that is a clear sign that we are still not ready to accept women as enlightened people. So the Sufism has a very, very interesting contradiction that all Sufis are considering themselves as females, but females are not allowed to be enlightened.
Yeah.
It's
I'll, I'll,
interesting.
I'll, I'll add something to that.
So probably
Shantanu.
just to add
Yeah,
to
please.
that as a question to you
Yeah.
is also the fact that Bobby ji ke answer se mujhe अचानक ख्याल आया कि most of the qawwalis also that we hear are in the male voice. Do we have a
Yes.
tradition of a
Yes,
female voice?
yes. Of course, Shakila Bano Bhopali. But I'll come to a different point here, please. Matlab, I'll add the significance of cinema here. We have heard about Meera, and Meera is popular today. Meera is known today because she was a revolutionary. She fought with the system. Meera had to fight with the entire system for her devotional path. Unfortunately, what we know of Meera is only from the oral history. What we know of Amir Khusro is only from the oral history. What we know of Kabir is only from the oral history. And we don't know whether it is of their creation or not. Because over the years, when you go down, the legacy go down, the heritage actually is being taken over by the next generation, you can say there is a prolapse. And that kind of prolapse or the deformation or the corruption, because every new generation adds their own point of view to that creation. So somewhere we are not very sure what Meera gave us is actually by Meerabai. What Kabir gave us is actually by Kabir. What I only 10% or 15% or 20% of what they did, but what cinema did. Cinema for last 120 years, the way it has archived, we know who Begum Akhtar was. We know the source of truth. We know who Lata Mangeshkar was. And we will know till the eternity, till the humanity is there, because cinema and this archival industry has archived those voices for us. We have never heard what Meera used to sing, how Meera used to sing, but we know how Bismillah Khan Sahab used to perform, because we have that documentation. That is one of the biggest contribution of cinema and visual medium. The way they have archived our folk forms, and especially people like Lata Mangeshkar. She was also a revolutionary because she fought with the system. She made her place in the male-dominated industry, and she actually ruled that industry. So you need people, you need ambassadors who are revolutionary, not only the artist. You need revolutionaries who can rise above their art, and they can become an actual contributor to those revolution. Yeah, please, Bobby, you want to say something?
Yeah, one point I wanted to add, like you said that we don't have any documentation of what Meera wrote or what Meera sang or what Kabir wrote. There's one interesting point.
It is there, but in form of oral history, which we don't have the actual source of truth. We don't know what Amir Khusro actually.
That's what I'm saying. There is a documentation that is this in Sikhism, the Granth which they Granth Sahib, that is the authentic one in which Kabir Sahib is included, and his verses are there. So that is authentic documentation of that.
Absolutely. That is what we know, but we know a lot more Kabir than that. That is the problem.
That is it. And interesting part is when we are talking Sufi mystics and Sufi lyrics and all, when we talk in the context of Guru Granth Sahib, so I always say that it is a sum of Sufi verses. The complete Guru Granth Sahib is a sum of Sufi verses.
And
it's not only of only Sikh gurus. There are only Sikh. There are only Sikh gurus in it, not even
Yeah.
10.
Yeah.
There are 35 people in it, and all the 35 people are Sufi mystics.
Yeah. Because
From all
we
over India.
devoted to that. They
Yeah,
were our religious paths in a way. So we didn't have any compromise with Ramayana. We didn't have
yeah.
any compromise to the text of Quran, and we didn't have any compromise to the Guru Granth Sahib, because even in the oral history we retained the original form.
Yes, yes.
That is one of the reasons. But other folk forms, the people where they used to have that kind of liberty to create that innovativeness, to bring that new sense, new sensibilities of their times, of 1700s, of 1800s. The only see the if you see the Langa and Mangania tribes of Rajasthan, they are the, you can say, they are the ones who have actually retained the original music, because there is no corruption. But in all other folk forms, you will
Hmm.
say that you will see the change with the times. But also in these religious texts like Guru Granth Sahib, like Ramayana, like Quran, we don't have much change. So that is why we have them in that particular form. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Now, uh, mm, I have a question for Shantanu, sir. So, from time immemorial, Bollywood music has been the carrier of data of different kinds, and it carried lyrics, emotions, and spiritual energies. And when music becomes a companion of poetry, things which the latter cannot achieve alone are now achieved. So, how can this Bollywood song transcend this kind of language barriers and bring people together in a way that nothing else can? So, over to you, sir.
So mute.
Sir, please unmute yourself.
I think we have enough examples of how Hindi film songs, even before Bollywood, kind of transcended everything. And they have become almost idiomatic. Like a Sahir Ludhianvi, a known agnostic, जिन्हें खुदा या भगवान पे कोई यही नहीं था, he is writing a song like Allah Tero Naam, Ishwar Tero Naam, so, and that, what is that becomes almost a slogan sort of thing. It becomes a phrase accepted all over the country. Gulzar Saab's हमको मन की शक्ति देना, मन विजय करे, has been adapted as a school anthem for so many schools all over the country. I think so. uh, the one thing that that has always transcended Hindi cinema, has taken Hindi cinema beyond just being Hindi, is the song. And that's true of every genre of song. People who didn't people who didn't like Hindi film songs also could not help be influenced by what R.D. Burman was doing or what Bappi Lahiri was doing. And similarly in the regional, in the religious music sphere also. So I think, like, the moment you uh, set a few words to a tune and the tune is catchy enough, it becomes something that reaches out, that goes beyond. Today when I hear us, I think nobody who hears a song Allah Tero Naam Ishwar Tero Naam will ever consider ki acha ye, is this a Hindu song or a is kawal, is it addressing the Hindu or the Muslim? I think it just, or it is addressing the south of India or the north of India. The language just happens to be Hindustani. Everything else is totally pan Indian. I think that's been the greatest contribution of Hindi cinema music in all genres. But I'd leave Bobby and Pavan to.
Yeah, you made a right point, sir. Because cinema actually has made the country united since the independence time period. Even then, we were united listening a song, Dura to Dunia Walo. So that kind of unity is still felt in cinema, even in 2022. Now, as if a song comes, so everybody feels like listening to it, even irrespective of the religion. Religion doesn't come in a film song. Whenever we have a hit song, it becomes hit in every region. You can see it playing in Madras, you can see it playing in Punjab, Delhi, Mumbai. So it transcends all kind of religion. So it that is the binding force of India. Cinema is binding force of our country.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example. In 80s, actually, Doordarshan opened up a complete new window for us of people of that particular era, and
Hmm.
where we were exposed to the religion, the various regional cinemas,
Regional cinema.
even Tamil, Telugu,
Yeah.
Bengal. We were exposed to Satyajit Ray, Ritik Katak. We were exposed to Adur Gopal Krishnan, and even Ilaiyaraaja and A.R. Rahman. These two people have actually contributed bringing South to the North, which was actually a big divide. And there
Yes.
was a song in Mahanadi where Ilaiyaraaja has composed for that river Mahanadi song. That is the
Yes.
theme song of that. That is in Tamil. And it takes us to the folk music of Bengal, the Bhatiyali, and he fuses that connection between the Bengal, that river that connects the entire India, and
Yeah.
you can find traces of Bengali music in that particular Ilara as a composition. And I, being a Hindi guy, I have listened that songs much more than many Hindi film
Yeah.
songs. There are many
Yeah.
S.P.
Right.
Subramanian
Right.
songs,
Can
many
do
A.R.
you
Rahman songs.
have it handy with you? Can you just play that song or sing that song, you or Bobby Singh ji? It would be lovely to have the audience just get a feel of that song.
Pavanji, your mic is muted.
Do we have access to playing songs here?
Yes, sir. You can.
Okay, one sec.
The reference of Ilayaraja na made me recall the release of Appu Raja.
Yeah.
When Appu Raja came, so we were so excited to listen to its songs. We loved its songs, and they were the first songs which were actually dubbed in Hindi and sung by also Kamal Hassan himself.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm putting that song. Just give me a moment. One sec. Yeah. So this since the film begins with a festival, do I need to put the video or only the audio can be shared? Where's the option to share that? Presents.
You
One
can
sec.
just play it. We will listen to it.
Nay, but will
Yes.
you? Nay, I'm not on a mic actually. So that may become that may but there's an option to share audio because I used to share. I'll do that. Just give me a moment. Just give me a moment. uh, just a moment. One sec. Yeah, so I'm sharing that. This is a Tamil song, but there's a Bengal here.
Is it playing?
I'll
Pawanji, is it playing? We can't hear anything.
Can you hear? Oh, sorry. You have to add it to. So Soma, you need to add it to the show. That screen, that additional screen, then it will come. Yeah, you must be seeing one particular screen, one additional screen with my name. You just need to add it to the show. Soma, Somi,
Yes, sir.
you can add that screen. You might be seeing that screen in the studio. You just need to use the menu and add that to the show. Add that screen to the show.
Sir, but I can't find anything.
Along with in the studio, in the back studio, there's a.
Pavan, if you have a speaker, so you can just play it.
Okay, once give me a moment. I'll play, but I am not on a mic actually.
In the
My
meantime, Swami, if you have any questions for Bobby ji, by the time Pavan gets ready
No,
with the thing,
I'm actually, you just need to add that screen to the show. Otherwise, it will play. There must be wherever you are seeing that in the studio, na. You just need to go to that interface. Uh, should I acha, just give me a moment. I'll play the video file. Then probably it will help. Just give me a moment. In the meantime, you can ask Bobby the question that you want to ask. Yeah.
So, sir, the Bhakti and the Sufi movements empower the Indian society in fundamental ways. So, enlighten it from the perspective of the vernacular literature, how it enlightens the vernacular literature.
You mean to say how it introduces the viewers to literature?
Yes, sir.
Sufi music, actually, Sufi music, any kind of music, if you want to term it Sufi music, is. I'll give you an example. In late 90s, a song came, Bulla Ki Jana Main Kaun. That was a private song sung by Rabbi Shergill. So that song made many people search for who has written it. Many were not aware who has written it. And many were not aware what did it mean. They were all listening to the sound, they were listening to the music, they were enjoying the video. The video was made innovatively, and nobody knew. Many youngsters didn't know that what kind of lyrics were it. So that made many people search for Bulle Shah. Bulle Shah came into mainstream after Bulla Ki Jana Main
Yeah,
Kaun.
yeah, absolutely.
It's the same way that we recall many of our past lyricists. After we listen to a song and we like it very much, then we start inquiring that who has written it, that from where these lyrics have been there. So Bulla Ki Jana Main Kaun made many search about Bulle Shah. Bulle Shah's books started selling. Bulle Shah's books started translated in other languages after that song. So that's how when a song gets hit in public and people start liking it, it opens many other
Yeah,
doors to the
yeah,
literature.
yeah.
So that is the thing music does to people. And music makes them literate also.
And
Films
I'll
make
yeah, yeah, I'll add one more example. Meera, for example, was a icon from Rajasthan. It was
yeah.
not a pan-Indian icon, but when Jutika Roy sang Meera in Bengal, when MS Subbulakshmi sang Meera in Tamil, when
Yeah.
Lata Mangeshkar sang Meera in Marathi, so when three different zones people sang Meera, so it became a national icon
Yes.
because
Right.
she was being sung in Tamil also, she was being sung in Bengal also. Jutika Roy became a Bengali Meera. We used to call her Bengali Meera. As Subbulakshmi actually played Meera in a film called Meera in 1944 by Duncan. And Lata Mangeshkar, we all know as modern Meera, and she has the way she has sung the Meera Bhajans. So Meera Bhajans are there for eternity in musical form. So that is how this
Yeah.
popular
The,
forms
la-
do. Yeah,
the latest example to this is a film released called Killa. Oh,
yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
Killa
Kala,
in
kala, kala.
Netflix.
Yeah,
So that when you watch that film, so you can search that who was Master Madan.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
leads to you to Master Madan. So when you search about Master Madan, you read about Master Madan, then you get to that era when he was singing and when the radio was there and what happened to him. So that makes the people literate about the past.
Yeah.
So these that cinema does. Cinema makes you aware of the past, makes you aware of the literature. You wish to read, you have to read, you should read.
You can add, if you can see an additional window in the studio, you can add using the menu to the show. Use the three menu button. If you are the show host, you would get uh, in the bottom part of the screen. Yeah. You can, no, no, you can, yeah, this one. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Matangi Taramama, Matangi Taramama, Trikudo Dhora Porapara. Tumi chole, tumi stole, tumi shoro mole. Tumi chole, tumi stole, tumi shoro mole. Matangi Taramama.
रे बोले बाबा पार करेगा बोले बाबा ए पार कर मोरा गंगे ए पार कर मोरा गंगे पानी সেচে যায় মা বলে পাছা তোরেন গোরে মাঝি কথায় মাঝি পানি সেচে যায় মা বলে পাশা তোরিন গোরে মাঝি কোথায় মাঝি
And now it goes back to the Tamil part. It is transcending. Just see.
எங்கேயோ திக்கு தசை காணாத தூரம்தான் எம்மாடி வந்ததென்ன என் வாழ்க்கை ஓடந்தான் காவேரி தீரம் விட்டு கால்கள் வந்ததடி காணாத சோகம் எல்லாம் கண்கள் கண்டதடி கைமாறி நான் வளர்த்த பச்சை கிளி போனது கண்ணார நானும் காண இத்தனை நாள் ஆனது இரு கண்ணே செந்தமிழ் தேனே தந்தையின் பாசம் வென்றதடி பசும் பொன்னே செவ்வந்தி பூவே இத்துடன் சோகம் சென்றதடி நான் கங்கா நதி காணும் பொழுது உண்மை விளங்குது அட இங்கே குளிக்கும் மனிதன் அழுக்கில் கங்கை கலங்குது சில பொல்லா மனங்கள் பாவக்கரை நீரில் கழுவுது இந்த முட்டாள்தனத்தை எங்கே சொல்லி நானும் அழுவது
So this is the Ilayaraja composition, which has the Bengal and the river is connecting that nation, the different regions, and that is why. And on that river, we have the folk songs of Bengal, where the river has been a core part, and we have the folk songs from Tamil, where the Kaveri river is the core driver, while in Bengal it is Ganga. So how they get connected and the music get connected, and Ilayaraja actually showed us how to take it from Bengal to Tamil
And,
Nadu using a single song. Yeah.
and it's a very disturbing movie.
Yeah. One of the movies which made me cry. Really.
Yes,
Really.
it made me cry too. And I was thinking about 2-3 days after seeing it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Please continue. Thank you for playing this. Because Soumi. Yeah.
Okay, so with this, we now come to the end of today's session. I would once again like to say
I
that
think that's
there
the
is one question pending, because I
there is
want to answer that. That is an
yeah,
important
please.
question.
This
Yeah.
this was just the perfect icing
Yeah.
on the cake.
Yeah.
This song
Yeah.
sequence. I'm so
Yeah.
glad we could play it. Thank you so much. But
And
please go
I
ahead.
believe
Ask.
we can take that question because that is very important. The last one.
Yes, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yeah.
So, sir, does the religious background of the people who are involved in the filmmaking process, such as the actors, producers, or directors, or scriptwriters, or lyricists, or playback singers,
Yeah.
musicians, affect the cinema, or are there some other forces or factors work behind this filmmaking
Yeah.
process?
Yeah.
So, what do you
So
say?
actually, cinema, if you see, is a product. It's a professional product. And when you make a product, the religious identity of the creators or the people involved, they live at home actually. And in fact, making cinema was and is one of the real good examples of communities working beyond religion and caste. And in fact, Bollywood and sports, these were the two important aspects of our life where we never cared for the religion of the driving force, because we never used the eyeglass of the religion like we
Hmm.
do in social media age. We never
Yes,
used to do, we never put a
never.
question mark when Naushad made Man Tadpat Hari Darshan ko, or
No.
Rafi Saab sang the Krishna Bhajan, or Amitabh Bachchan playing a Muslim coolie singing Madine Wale ko mera salam kehna, or there was a sense of, there was definitely a sense of local community earlier, but the
Yeah.
social media gave it a global and wider voice and in real time. And in our age, in our times, social media is the global conditioning camp, and the
Yes.
power is using it everywhere. If it can be a bazaar, it can be a e-commerce, it can be a government, and today it separates the artist from art
Yes. Platform
and his identity, his religious identity. So the
becomes bigger.
artists have restrictions,
Yes.
and they have so many eyes watching them, even before the production starts.
Right.
That is the problem of today, because
Yeah.
there is a real time information available everywhere, so one can use and misuse that information to create a mass movement, like a lot of films have seen that kind of rejection or even a protest.
Yeah.
Somehow some of the forces are actually misusing that, but Bollywood and sports were never like that. We never
No.
questioned if Irfan Pathan has taken hat trick, the entire nation was happy, like
Yes.
so Bollywood and sports were actually isolated in
And
that form.
yes.
There were
And
other aspects you can always have, but nowadays in last 10 years or so, we have been seeing this kind of separation of artists with his identity, and people start questioning, and a lot of people from with the vested interest actually,
and
they start doing it, and that is actually harming the entire harmony of the system, and even the way the Bollywood and sports work. Yeah, please.
I like to add one simple thing.
Yeah,
Uh, Earlier, there was a sense of responsibility also.
yeah,
When we used to sing another sect song,
yeah,
like I gave an example. So when Mohammad Rafi was called to sing Mitar Pyare Nu
yeah,
in Nanak Ram Jahaj Hai, so that could have easily given to any other Sikh artist also.
yeah, yeah,
But as Mohinder called him and he said that I want you to sing that song. And then Mohammad Rafi asked him that first explain me what does it mean.
yeah,
Then it was all explained to him. It is a song of pain.
yeah,
It represents pain, and it represents person addressing God ki just see what pain I am suffering.
yeah,
Mitar pyare nu hal murida da kehna. So Muhammad Rafi sung it in that way that till 2022, till to date, there is no comparison of that rendition.
absolutely,
There is
absolutely.
no parallel to that rendition, and it has been sung by a Muslim. A Sikh verse was sung by a Muslim.
And most of the kavalis actually,
Yes,
filmi kavalis, most popular kavalis are either by Manna Dey or Asha Bhosle.
yes,
Matlab, that is one of the point. Or even the Ishka Ishka that Shantanu brought up. So Rekha Bharadwaj was the voice, Vishal Bharadwaj gave the music, and Gulzar was the lyricist. So there was no religious identity of the people associated with it. Is the sensibility. It is the sensibility of the artist that grows beyond a language, that grows beyond a religion, and it is that sensibility that drives you to take up that particular form.
But doesn't it make you sad, Pavanji?
Of course,
Looking around.
we are actually, the entire social media thing makes me sad. But the positive side is we are actually connected today on that only. if,
That is,
if
that is
that
why.
was not there, we would not be talking in real time to the people. And I can see a few questions also. So I don't know if we have time. I believe we have a habit of crossing the time limits always, but it is all up to Soumi how she wants to take it up from now, from here on. Yeah.
Yes, sir. We have a question, and this question is asked by Harishadan Ghosh. This is a question to Pavan Jha sir. How do you see the gradual changes of the Sufi songs in the movies of 60s to 90s and the early uh, 2020?
Yeah. So earlier, the artists actually, even if they were creating a product, they were the creative artists. People like Salil Chaudhury, people like Jamal Sen, people like Vanraj Bhatia, people like Shankar Jaikishan. They actually always put the art above the product, because the art was the face of their product. Unfortunately, in last 30 years or so, we have become producers. We are not creating music, we are producing music, and we
Yeah,
are producing music for consumption. We are not producing music for cherishing. So the place of the music has changed. That is why the creators have also changed. They are called the music producers. They are not the creators anymore. So we,
yeah,
we don't create that. So one of the reasons, if you go back, I'll give one example of a Sufi song. It's a devotional song sung by Mubarak Begum and Muhammad Rafi. It is from a film called Daira, and one has to listen that song. It is a song called Devata Tum To Mera Sahara, created by Jamal Sen. It is a song devoted to Krishna, Lord Krishna, and it is a Sufi song. It has that Sufi element to it, because it has that connect with the God, and the even the person who is singing, he's singing it with the Sufi element. Even the lyrics are driving to the Sufi element. But unfortunately, you can't find a single song of that impact in last 30-40 years, because the intent of creating that kind of connect is missing, because
yes,
we are in a hurry. We are making products for consumption. We are not making
yeah,
products for because when Salilda used to make music, he used to do 3 films a year, 4 films a year. If you see his 50 years filmography, you will find only 81 or 90 Hindi films. So, so
yeah.
you so
I,
the kind of output people are generating these days, and the kind of compulsions they are working in, it has definitely hampered the quality, and that
I'll,
is why the gradual change. Matlab, there are a lot many factors. Films
I'll,
are going to the global platforms, so we don't have that much space for the music as such. So that is also one of the reasons. When you send the film to yeah, please, Bobby.
I'd
Yeah.
like to add one thing, supporting Pavanja sir's comment. Since last 20 years, the quality of music going down. One of the main reasons is you are not buying your music. You are not spending money on your music. You are getting it all free. And whatever you are listening, you are getting it as a time pass. You are not buying your music. You're not spending your hard-earned money on buying music.
Yeah.
That
So
is a
so we
very
used
major
to,
factor.
Bobby can confirm this. We used to travel to those filthy lanes to get
Yes.
the very special song recordings that were not available. So
Yeah.
we
We
remember those
used to,
filthy lanes. They were
yeah.
not. Yeah.
We used to travel 100 kilometers, 50 kilometers. We never thought that we had to go that far. We went that far for one song, for one recording. But now you can get it at a click. You can get it free. You're not spending anything. You're not doing any labor for that. So when you are not doing labor for listening, so they are not doing labor for making.
Yeah, yeah, correct. Accessibility is one of the real good reasons, because struggle makes that kind of
Yes,
passion grow more rather than
yes,
the accessibility.
very right.
And in fact, I have a song on my computer, but I go to the America, cross at least 100 hops in between and listen it on YouTube. I don't even search it on my computer, which is there on my computer,
Yes,
because it is the
yes,
accessibility and ease, the comfort, because there's no struggle. And somewhere
yeah.
that struggle is very important for growth, and somewhere we are missing that.
Both
This
ways. That
generation is
struggle
missing.
has to be both ways. That struggle has to
Yeah,
be in listening. That struggle has to be in making also.
absolutely, absolutely. And one
So
reason, you see, I'll add one more thing. That is where our Hindi film music is still there. We are still listening to 40s, 50s, 60s, because the people who created that music, they set a bar to that
Mm.
high that it is going to be eternal for its quality. The way, the kind of joy it gives, the kind of enlightenment it gives, the kind
Yeah,
of song.
yeah, right.
Ye duniya agar mil bhi jaye, it shows you to that real picture of the. So the kind of work those people have done, they have set the bar so high that
Yeah,
it is very difficult for the people of today to become any other Lata Mangeshkar, to create that kind of a legacy.
yeah, you,
But the one more, I'll give one more assessment to it, that our language, especially the Hindi, since your talk has a very specific focus on language part, so I'll tell you one thing from my personal assessment. Hindi language is today surviving because Hindi films and Hindi film music is still very popular. Because if you see the other dance forms, other forms of arts and literature, people don't buy Hindi books, people don't read Hindi books, people don't see Hindi dramas, people don't read Hindi poetry as much. But cinema and film music is still one of the major force to keep that language popular.
yes. Like I'll add one more thing. There's time to add that now.
Yes, yes, please.
Yeah, and like the question was, ki, is the quality of the songs deteriorating or falling? So one of the reasons of that is what I felt while working in the studio is connecting it to the spiritual movement, to the spiritual Sufi context we have. You must have seen that when meditation is done, then the people always prefer group meditations. 100 people meditating together will create a different impact than a single person meditating. That in Sufi language is called sangat. That is, the word is sangat. When you are in a sangat, then you have a different impact of things. So that I felt while working in studio today. Now today we work individually. There is only one person in the studio or two person in the studio. We are singing, we are making music, and then going. But at that point of time, there was sangat making music. There were 100 people sitting in the theater, in the studio making music. That kind of meditation has its impact. 100 people creating a song makes an impact that adds it value into it, and only one person making a song doesn't add that value into it. That is also a point which doesn't, when we don't find that kind of magic in today's song, because 10, 20, 30 people have not worked on it together. That energy is missing.
So, thank you so much, sir. And I would once again like to say that we are calling for submission of stories, essays, and poems. And for project architecture and submission guidelines, please visit www.tellmeyourstories.biz. And I extend a heartfelt thank you to Shantanu Chaudhury sir, Pavan Jha sir, and Bobby Singh sir for this wonderful and remarkable session. And thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you, Soumi. Thank you, Bobby.